Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Chris,
And what?
and
Hi,
you're your
folks,
water.
everyone. Welcome back to Human in the Loop. We're very excited for today's episode because, very selfishly, I invited one of my friends and coworkers to this, Christina. Hi.
Hey, everybody.
Hey,
For those who somehow don't know you, although I refuse to believe that, can you tell us more about you and where you are in the world of AI and professional engagement in general, and just let us know more about you?
Sure. Well, I'm going to guess probably nobody knows about me. So I'll give you like a medium intro. So I'm Christina Mallon. I am an inclusive designer with dual arm paralysis who's also neurodivergent. I lead inclusive design at Microsoft and really work at the intersection of accessibility, responsible AI, and product innovation. In my role, really, I just make sure that people with disabilities and other historically, not thought about communities are thought about in technology from ideation to being built and deployed. I work closely with product teams, engineers, designers, researchers, policy partners, marketers to really think about how they're ensuring that their output reflects the diversity of the world. I got into this because when I was 22, my arms mysteriously became paralyzed. And I felt as though the world wasn't designed with me in mind. So I wanted to make sure that the future products, experiences thought about a disabled user. And when, you know, AI was becoming more mainstream, I knew that I had to be a part of it because when the internet was created, disability wasn't really thought about. And now, gosh, I think it's something around 80% of websites aren't accessible for people with disabilities who use assistive technology. So I'm really here to make sure that humans are kept in the loop.
I love that. I love that. I think it's so important. I remember I had a discussion some time back. I think it was at Future Decoded like 5 years ago, and one of my friends came up to me, and we were discussing accessibility and the concept of disabilities, and they said to me, "It is a mismatched interaction between a person and society." And I was like, it blew my mind, like just thinking about it that way, because it can be everything from, so I have an eye disease called keratoconus, right? Like, so I'll flick my eyes around a lot, especially with screens, and I have like special glasses. But what I notice is I do it when I'm driving. Like, it's just one of those things, right? And I've just thought, okay, I mean, it's not nearly as serious as other things, but it gives me headaches and all sorts. And actually, it's becoming worse and worse over the years. And I realized that actually the way that I work is not necessarily set up for that, right? And if you take another very completely separate example of, a person getting onto a train holding their child and their phone for directions, like how do you navigate that? And it's really interesting. Like, I see this all the time, and that whole mismatched interaction is not represented very well by, I think, humans in general. And that's just my perspective, right? Like, I just think it's interesting to think of it as it's not always the inability to do something, but it's the inability to do something in the moment some of the time.
And I want to meet this friend that talked about mismatch interactions because really is one of the best lenses to put on that because it starts to really humanize it and say that everyone experiences mismatches between, what they can do in that moment of time and what's around them at that moment of time. And it really opens up who you're designing for.
Oh, totally. And I think that who you're designing for, like the minute you're designing for a specific type of person, like, hey, I have two working eyes, I have two working arms, two working legs, blah, 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 blah. And then that's the only type of person you're designing for, you lose a whole audience, right? And it's crazy because I'm seeing it more and more these days, like even just taking the kids out to do things. I'm literally normally hauling a child, another child, doing something else, and then you lose it completely. Then I'm just like, I would rather not do this. And I'm going to give you an awful example, right? But it's not necessarily accessibility. It's just a complete mismatch in thought from a person designing something. So holiday packages, you can't in the UK you can't buy a holiday package for four people. Sorry, for five people or three people. You can buy it for four. Right? It's really impossible. So if you have kids and you have a spouse and you have three children, it's impossible to get a holiday package for three children and two parents.
That's so strange.
Yeah, if you do, and
Designing for the average UK household.
yeah, many years ago, when I was married, it happened where we ended up having to stay in 2 bungalows. Isn't that wild? It's just bad. It's badly thought out, right? And I think that people get this perspective of, oh, this is what normal is to them, therefore everything we do is that. And unfortunately, that's not the case for people who are experiencing a mismatched interaction.
I mean, it goes into data and kind of the making decisions based on data, but wrongly applying the data. And we have the famous examples of averages and how when they were doing crash test dummies and developing a crash test dummy for cars, were doing it on the average human body. Newsflash, there's no such thing as an average human body. If you take the human beings and kind of like try to do an average of that, it gives you something that doesn't reflect reality. And as a result, the test crashes that they were doing were safe, but in real life, the average did not exist, so the cars were not safe. And kind of both of your examples are leading me to there's no such thing as an average.
No.
Yeah.
I love this, and I love the fact that we're talking about the normalization of experiences. Christina, you mentioned about the fact that when let's say generative AI became a household name, you knew that you wanted to work in this area, especially thinking of human in the loop. And we asked this to all of our guests. But what does responsible AI mean to you?
Responsible AI means to me specifically as a disabled user is that it's representing my community correctly and it's thinking about how it can benefit my community. And when you're building generative AI in any AI system, the maker is thinking about who benefits, really who's harmed, who's missing from the conversation, and really asking those questions continuously, not just at launch. And if we are going to create trustworthy AI, this needs to be kind of the development of how we really build AI and we keep humans at the center. And we want to use it as a tool, not a weapon. And if we follow really kind of the inclusive design methodology of like understanding like where mismatches lie, who could be, affected by the product that uses the AI, and then ensuring that you're creating the AI that reflects the diversity of the world. If we follow that, I think we'll be in a better place in the future.
Yeah, you said something interesting there. It's like it's not just at release or at production, it's consistent. Like there's a lot of people that talk about this concept of observability over artificial intelligence tools. And it's not like, oh, we've made a thing and at that time it's fine. So we don't ever have to do anything about it again. It's you have to consistently make sure that it's awesome, consistently make sure that your audience is widened. And I'm seeing that more and more where, back in the day, people would release a website that was compliant with the standards, but actually the standards change like literally every week. So you have to have that observability layer. And actually, I feel like that's something I personally am missing, right? Because when I release a tool, I'm very much like, oh, immediate gratification, get it done, and move on to the next cool thing. But I'm learning now that I have to experience the observability layer. I have to experience the operational layer, like make sure that the more things change, the more my models and my tools have to change. And it sucks because I want to spend more time there, but then, things just get so crazy. So actually, Christina, do you have any advice on that? Like, do you have any recommendations that could potentially help?
So I think, we try to do this at Microsoft, and it's really to understand post launch and doing usability studies to see and understand where the things we might have launched and maybe it made sense then, but let's say a year after, kind of the viewpoint has changed, we've had some learnings and adjusting the product there. We try to do it on our top products about once a year to ensure that, okay, things have changed, what can we do, how can we update, and really planning both financially and time wise, that we might have to update this product. With AI moving really fast, I believe we're going to have to kind of change it from 6 months or maybe 3 months every time we look at it. But it's having kind of the product managers and the program managers understand that once it's launched, this is really just thinking of it as like a prototype and that we will consistently have to make changes as we come into this new world of AI and how it's constantly learning, constantly getting better, constantly changing, and that we can't just, deploy and ship and walk away. And it's really making sure that we're building from the beginning, that we're going to have to think of it post launch, and at what time intervals does it make sense based off the development of the technology and the, changing viewpoints of the world.
And one thing I would add to that, I think, from our role, Christina, is also we get input from consumers, right? There are things that we will miss. It's not the if. We will miss things, especially when it comes to generative AI. So as we're getting those inputs and feedback from customers, consumers, whatever we want to call them, how do we ensure that we go back and address those things? And this leads me to my next question regarding disability and disability representation, because I know you work very deeply on that. Um, a lot of times, especially when it comes to new risk areas, which this is, people say, hey, how do you define that? Or what is that? Or how do you even know it's an area of focus? So as you're looking at disability representation and AI systems, what does that look like? How do you even start to look at the new risk area and engage on it, let alone do things around mitigation?
Yeah, I think this is something you and I talk about a lot in our day jobs. And we are also figuring out how to do this correctly. Um, you and I are both neurodivergent, and we don't have the lived experience of someone who has low vision or is blind. So, really partnering with diverse communities, both global South, global North,
Mhm.
that have different lived experiences as a disabled person than, we might have in just the US. And working with them in a systematic way to define what good looks like to them now. And then training the models on that, um, I think, you know, is probably the best way at it, is ensuring that diverse humans are in the loop and they are saying how they want to be represented. And us, really looking at just the data in, the prompts, what the output looks like, and evaluating that. And then really testing the model, having kind of a structure of measurement, and then doing it again as times and things change, adding more data. But again, we know that we are never going to get it 100% right. We are never going to represent a community at 100%. We are going to try to do it in a way that we can represent individuals and communities in a progressive way and a representative way, but we know that there's going to be outliers that we cannot just solve for because it's too difficult, or we need to start with this community first and then we'll do that community. But I think we need to start trying to fix this issue rather than being scared that we're going to offend someone. And that is really, really key. Disability has been around since humans came to this earth or were built on this earth. And we haven't seen a lot of advancements in ensuring that disabled people are represented in a way they want to be represented and can do the things that they want to do. And that is because people were scared to offend disabled people. And I think you and I have decided, okay, no, we need to try to nip some of this in the butt as fast as possible. Why don't we find communities that we know have diverse representation of the disability community and start by community and community?
I love that. I love that. I think I was chatting to somebody the other day, and we were talking about releasing a tool out to people, and they said, "Chris, you need to stop letting perfect get in the way of good." And I like that because, like, I tend to think, okay, well, we haven't catered for this community, therefore we can't release the tool. And they're like, no, but you've catered for a community, and that's good, right? Like, at least you're doing something to do the right thing. And I feel like that's important, right? And I think often you're right. I think we're too scared. Hey, we've done something for them, but we haven't done something for them. Is that going to cause problems? And I think actually, in truth, sometimes it does. Like sometimes people do get mad and they're like, "Hey, you didn't release for our community," and it's like, "Yeah, but we can't. If we do it for everyone all the time, every day, it's going to be impossible, right?" And I think actually there's got to be an air of understanding from us that diversity is effectively a collection of perspectives from others, and that grows, but then from others that actually we can't solve every problem immediately. It's really hard. Like I see this all the time. I remember when I was at Microsoft, we spent a lot of time in training and in learning, and eventually it got to the point where we were having to support like every cause every second of the day, and it's literally impossible because then you don't do the thing you're supposed to. So I've battled with this a lot. It's an ethical thing where you go, I really want to make everyone happy and I really want to do the right thing, but then it's a responsibility thing saying, but you can't and you have to do something.
And not everything is going to work for everyone, right? In the sense of human beings have diverse needs, and especially as we think of disabilities, it's a variety of elements that goes into what is useful for one and what is completely not useful for the other. So even things like that, massively important. Captioning, great for people like us who are neurodiverse, great for people who are deaf or hard of hearing. Not fantastic for people who are blind. That's not their need,
Right.
right? So it's a spectrum of also of if we're going to improve things, we have to start somewhere. And actually, Chris, you brought up a really important topic is like how do you balance ethics? Um, and Christina works across, yeah, you don't. Christina works across a variety of teams at Microsoft. I know that you touch upon engineering, you touch upon marketing, touch upon working with our customers. How do you feel that tension exists between we want to innovate at scale, but we also want to do it ethically, and we want to make sure that we adapt inclusive design? How do you navigate that in the real world? Because it's hard.
It's very hard. I just had to have a sip of water because I know this is going to be a long one. Um, it's really difficult. I think we are moving at the fastest pace from a technological transformation that I've ever experienced. And we, are a for-profit company, so we have to really deliver. But I think it's ensuring that many teams understand that it is much more harmful and hurts our bottom line if we don't do the work up front to really think about how are we applying responsible AI principles, and how are we thinking about including, underfunded communities in really kind of our research and our development. Because if we just launch something without really thinking about these principles and being human centered, it's going to be extremely costly for us to fix. And the product teams that I work with understand that. So, Joanna, you and I haven't had too hard of a time to get teams to understand the importance and how it's not going to really slow it down when you're thinking about these topics over the long run, because this is what's best to do in the beginning. But you definitely will find people that just want to rush, rush, rush. I think that's in kind of any organization. But I really have experienced our partners in engineering get excited about the work that we're doing around responsible AI and really see the value in it. So we haven't seen too much of a pushback. But again, things are moving that fast, things fall through the cracks. But again, the teams are really excited to create great work that benefits the community.
I think that's awesome. I've really always liked Microsoft for that. Is that like there's always people that are wanting to do some really beneficial stuff and really do the right thing. I love that. I really do like that attitude, and it showed when it actually always shows when even looking at the principles that are on the websites and seeing some of the representation from the tech. It's cool, right? And you don't often see that in other vendors. So like that's why I've always been a massive fan of the Microsoft ecosystem, and actually even in the community, there's a massive support for folks who are disabled. Like people are always trying to cater and make sure that everyone's looked after. And yes, it's very difficult to cater for everyone, but I think the attitude of do the right thing is there,
Definitely.
right? And then if we don't know if we're doing the right thing or not, that's where we get people giving us advice and help. And I like that.
When they know that there might be a mismatch, they're open to learning more. And,
Yeah.
we want to really kickstart this work at Microsoft when it comes to disability representation and harms. And they gave her the room to say, hey, okay, how do you think we should be doing it? And that was key, that they were open to reaching out and understanding kind of our POV because they knew there was a mismatch.
I really like that. I think it's very cool. Very cool.
And Christina, I feel like a fraud just talking to you about this, so please jump in and evolve. But back to Chris's point and yours in terms of the long run, we do know, and we have very public examples, that when it fails and it fails publicly, it does lead to diminished brand trust and brand value. Um, yeah, I'm just curious on your take on that, of just the long-term gains versus the short-term supposed wins.
Yeah. I mean, because everyone has a mini computer in their pocket and everyone has a platform now, people really will voice their opinion. And if something happens that, is harmful to them or harmful to their family members, they will voice it. So that adds additional scrutiny. And I think that we understand that we're here to empower everyone to achieve more at Microsoft. So the teams really, really get that. But again, it's just talking to executives about that risk factor, saying, hey, when we're talking about the work that we're doing around responsible AI and disability, and we show some of the gains that we've had because product teams have really thought about this at the beginning, we might be leaving some of the community out because we can't design for everyone. So, really preparing the product teams that when you are doing some of this work, there might be some backlash, even though when you thought about this at the beginning, because we're not solving for the entire community. And that's how I have gone about, both through Microsoft and my work at Open Style Lab, is to ensure that your stakeholders understand that there's going to be haters and backlash no matter what, because everybody has a microphone and there's good and bad about that. But we have to ensure that we are doing this work and not letting it stop us, because we don't want to sit still while we can make change.
Christina, you mentioned OpenStyle Lab. And I know that you're a late stage co-founder of OpenStyle Lab. Do you want to tell us more about OpenStyle Lab? And also, once you do, I know that there's a lot that you folks do regarding co-creation with disabled people. Tell us more about what you're observing there, including kind of common misconceptions from the tech space.
Definitely. So Open Style Lab is a nonprofit. We have headquarters both in New York and in London. And what we do is we ensure that different communities are co-designing the future of adaptive products. This is key because a lot of CPG, fashion, technology are not familiar with the concept of co-design. When they think about co-design, they might think of it as just getting feedback right before you launch a product or experience. Instead, it's really shared ownership of the output and really bringing in that community at the beginning, because people with disabilities are experts in adaptation, creativity, and systems thinking. So we get product designers, engineers, and fashion designers to work together with a member of the disabled community to really create and ideate on kind of a mismatch that they've identified in the world. And that's really, really important, because I think tech really misunderstands what co-design is with disabled people. And we want to make sure that it's designing with disabled people early on, compensating them fairly. And then also, when they might have negative feedback on the product, is maybe being open to changing direction of how you are going, even when it's uncomfortable, because people just aren't comfortable with the uncomfortable. And I think that's why disability has been left out of the conversation, and why in partnership with Joanna and many members of the team at Microsoft and at Open Style Lab, is that we really have to push people to be okay with the uncomfortable, because we are building the future of the world.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Um, Recently, I said to my 9-year-old, he was mad at me because I told him to do something, and he's like, "Oh, you think I'm stupid?" I'm like, "No, I'm giving you constructive criticism. I don't think you're stupid." I said, "You're actually very clever, but the problem is that you're receiving it badly." And I actually think I love the idea of being comfortable with being uncomfortable. I love it. Like, run towards the fire, hell yeah. But I think we have to teach. We have to, right? We have to teach people that. We have to teach people that what we're doing here is not criticizing them. We're trying to figure out a better way to do things, or help them do things in a way that is more adaptive for others. And like, I'm highly emotive, right? Like, my thing is, I'm deeply emotional. So if somebody says something to me, I don't take it with, oh, they're professionally giving me criticism. I'm like, oh, they hate me. Well, I used to, not anymore. But it's taken training and like learning through society that that's not what people mean. So now I openly ask for it. I'm like, can you help me figure this out or figure that out? And it's great because in that learning, I have been able to better myself, and now I'm seeing it in others. But I think, like, sometimes the world isn't ready for the things we say to them,
I
and
agree.
that's hard.
I'm also a highly emotional person. I've had to really train myself, but I think this is very important to get, our future,
Yep.
CEOs, CFOs, CTOs to be uncomfortable, because that is going to be key in the future AI empowered world, because things are constantly changing. We can't predict the future. This is our first time really, really having technology to be able to do cognitive work.
Yes.
So no one has the right answers right now and can predict the future. So being fine with being uncomfortable is key.
Yeah. I want to tell you something that I really loved. I think it was 2 years ago, we were at Power Platform Conference, and one of my favorite comedians, Trevor Noah, obviously he's South African, so he's just the best. And he got on stage and he said, "We are defining the defaults of the next generation." And I love the concept of, like, never accepting the default, right? Like, it's just something I refuse to do. And he said that, and I'm like, wow, that really resonated, because in AI and accessibility and even training the way we think, in everything, we are really defining the defaults of the way the next generation will be brought into the workforce. And like, I feel personally, I was brought into the workforce as quite like a black and white thinker in the beginning. So I'm very polarizing as far as an opinion goes. So if somebody says AI is bad, there's no middle ground for me. Like Iwana will tell you, I'm like, it's either awesome or it's a hell no, right? And I'm learning to be a bit more deliberate in my thinking, and like, hey, maybe I can put some more thought into why it's a hell no or why it's a hell yeah. But I think often when you look at senior C-suite managers, they don't consider things like accessibility to be important, or things like responsible AI. I mean, I had a conversation recently where the person said to me, "What is the quantification for responsible AI? Like, why would I do this? Because it doesn't make me money." I'm like, "You're missing the point entirely. Actually, this is going to save you millions, right?" And it's the same with accessibility. It's like, not, oh, how does it make me money? It's actually, how do you reach a wider market, and how do you actually bring in more income, but also like give people the opportunity to use the things that you're making? So yeah, I'm learning, like, the default to the next generation is not always going to be this or that.
I love that. And, Joanna and I always kind of have to do this at work, is how do we position thinking about responsible AI in a way that benefits who we're talking to? Because we're constantly talking to,
Yeah.
business managers, to policy people, to product people, and they all have, different things that motivate them. So it's really understanding what narrative will make them move. And it
Oof, I
is,
like
it
that.
is, it is key, and it takes, time to understand people. But I think it is really, really important as we move forward in this new AI world.
What
In fading,
narrative
right?
makes, yeah,
Because
what narrative makes them move?
yeah, but we learned that the hard way.
Yeah,
Going
yeah,
back to, I was nodding along as you folks were talking about, being emotive, emotional. I'm like, oh yes, all of that. Yeah, especially when it's your baby, and it's like I have that sense of it's my baby, and I want it to shine. And I remember in the first days of when we were trying to convey things, well, I was trying to convey things, and I realized the way I was trying to convey it didn't make sense to the other party when it came to the disability representation word. Because I had my Yuana cap where I assume this is knowledge for everybody and it's very clear for everybody. So just saying like, oh yeah, we have to do this, it's motivation enough. Newsflash, it's not. So understanding and meeting people where they're at was actually a very valuable lesson for me professionally. And was it very uncomfortable? Yes. Did I grow a lot? Yes. Am I still learning today? Yes. So I have to remind myself, growth does come from those areas oftentimes, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Krishna, I know we talked about the responsibility side of things a lot. We talked about risk as well. And Chris will smile at that because I was talking about how I want to be focused on the positives as well. And that's important. And as we talk about AI, there is a lot of positive as well when it comes to the disability community. Tell us more about that. How do you see the opportunity for AI for the disabled community and not only?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's huge. Um, I am about 7.5 months pregnant right now. I wouldn't have another child if I felt like I couldn't take on more. And
Yeah.
I think some of the reason I can take on more is I know that a lot of the barriers that I run into or because I'm disabled will hopefully be fixed because of gains in AI. I'm that confident
Wow.
in it and excited around it. And I think, yes, as we've said across this podcast, is that there will be times, well, it won't work out. But I think that it's going to be a force multiplier for access. It's just going to really, I think like lower the cost of participation for people with disabilities, giving them the tools to create, to tell their own stories, to
Yeah.
fix the problems that they see in front of us. And, you know, this is not just for the disability community. This is for really all underrepresented communities. So if we use AI as a tool and not a weapon, I really think that the disability divide is going to be reduced significantly and fast because of AI.
Oh, that's exciting. I love the I include this in a lot of talks that I do. I say, we as humans have this really bad habit of turning walking sticks into weapons, where it was designed as something that was meant to help us, and then we do dumb stuff with it, and it makes me so mad. But like, I sit on the fence where I'm like extremely motivated by the cool things I see people doing with the tools. Like I see some really cool things, and I mean, I'm super NDA'd on a lot of this stuff, but I really am. I really want to spit it out. And I'm like, no, no, no. But what's amazing is like some of the things I'm seeing people doing just really aid society. Like they just massively benefit society. And I was chatting to a chap yesterday from a French partner, and he was telling me what he was doing. The call was supposed to be like 25 minutes. It ended up being an hour because I canceled stuff because I was just mind blown by what this dude was up to, and it was so cool. And then the dumb stuff like the malt books of the world come out, and then I'm like, okay, it's hard to block out that negative drony noise of people doing silly things. But then somebody comes along like the guy yesterday and tells me the story, and all of that junk goes out the window because I hear this really cool thing. And I'm hoping, Christina, that like I think you're right, and I'm hoping the advancements are quicker. Like that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping they don't take. I really wish the negative stuff was slower and the positive stuff was faster.
And hey, by the way, we all, because I know you both very well. We all benefit from AI, myself included. Christina, you know the story well, but I couldn't read research papers. Dear Lord in heavens, what is the font on those things? So, using AI to be able to reason and parcel that content in ways that I can understand it has been a massive thing for my job. Chris, I know the story of you sleeping better.
Oh yeah. You'll love this. So sorry. Now you so I wear a wearable to track fitness and stuff because I'm trying to get a lot more healthy. Like I even ran. I nearly managed the 5K in under 30 minutes today. I was pretty
Oof.
happy. Yeah, not it was hilarious to watch. It was like watching a fat giraffe run. It was quite funny, but I was like, "Doof, doof, doof."
I
Um,
need videos.
no, let
Well, maybe after a few drinks,
yes,
then we
yes.
can
Then
give it straight.
I will show you videos. But something I started doing was I started tracking my use of AI over the last kind of year and a half. And I have a trust issue, right? My trust issue is that I don't trust people or tech. Like I have to do it myself. I have to be in control. If I'm basically Rabbit from Winnie the Pooh, right? I have to be in control of everything, right? And well, in that realm. And what I've started to learn is actually there's this cool saying that says a bird never trusts the branch it sits on, it trusts in its ability to fly. And I actually, that was me, right? Like, and I went to this therapist and he said to me, dude, you just need to remember that you can swim, right? You are able to do this stuff. And actually, I started to put a bit more trust in the tools I was using. And this, my cognitive load, like I'm a 4 hour a night sleeper because like there's a lot of overthinking going on, right? Like there's a lot of noise and static. And as I started to use AI more and more, I started to trust the tools for my job. And I actually started gaining back sleep. So I've got stats on this. You can actually see it where I earned every day across a year an hour and a half sleep overall in the evening. So now I sleep 6 hours a night. And for me, that is a huge deal. Like, I cannot tell you like how different I feel. And that whole concept of like, actually, I feel like I've gained time back. Like last night, I was sitting with my son playing guitar in my room. I would never have done that. 2 years ago, I would never have done that. But now I'm learning that actually I trust the tools and I trust, and as you said, Christina, like you get these tools that you can use. I trust them so much now that I'm not panicky and I'm not full of anxiety. And it's really interesting to see the output.
That's amazing because I also think that extra hour of sleep is going to add years to your life. And I think that's why I'm just so excited about the ability to handle some of the cognitive work and the
Yeah,
cognitive load. We have so much information getting to us. We have so much on our plates and the expectations of others. And if it can handle some of this, I just think it's going to be a better lifestyle for all.
I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
Then a crowd favorite. I know. We can all chat forever. This can be a 5 hour podcast, but we have limitations. Mm. So I have to go into my last question, Christina. And this is a question again we ask for all of our guests. If you were to give our audience homework, what homework do you want to give them?
Yeah, I think the homework is really two parts. It is scary to not know the future, and I don't think anyone working in AI knows the future of what it's going to look like. So again, be comfortable with the uncomfortable. That is really, really key, and that's something I'm working on myself. So, it's homework for our listeners and homework for myself. And I think the second is create your own responsible AI principles. When you're really working with all these different tools and all these different models, really take the time to understand what is that company who's producing that models, what's their stance on responsible AI? Does it match up with yours? So really only using systems where you see a match in your kind of beliefs and ethics and your own personal responsible AI guidelines and that model companies, responsible AI guidelines. And I think to really ask those questions is key. And that also drives when people start to ask the questions around responsible AI, that really forces a lot of the companies to think about responsible AI. So that's really the two pieces of homework that I would love, listeners to really do and think about.
That is brilliant. I've never heard anybody articulate what is your responsible AI framework. And I just realized this completely shifts the way that I think as well in terms of what tools do you use and how do you use them. So it's kind of the human in the loop of your own responsible AI. Brilliant. That is brilliant. We're gonna absolutely share that wide with people because it's critical. Anything from you, Chris, before we go?
No, I've gone very deep into my brain right now about my responsible AI framework, which is now problematic. But I agree with you. I like the idea of like personal AI ethics. So as an example, something that I refuse to do is I don't use AI to generate 5,000 pieces of artwork every 5 seconds. I don't treat AI like a pub game. And it's quite amazing now that you mention it. I'm thinking, hey, actually, what if I were to be like held to account? What would I say to people in the things that I do for good with AI? So now you've sent me down a rabbit hole.
And I love that you're thinking about it and you can kind of be the role model to everyone else. I think that's really, really important. When voice technology came out, myself and my husband were very had a lot of conversations like what kind of tone do we want to use when we use Cortana or Alexa around my child, because we
Yeah.
use it as a part of the family. It's kind of the oracle. And what are our guidelines there? And I think if more people think about what are their own responsibility guidelines, it will allow them to really feel more trust and confident in what they're using.
Thank you, Christina.
I love
As
that.
always, absolutely insightful. Chris, I hope we get you back from the rabbit hole by the time we have the next episode. We'll see.
I'm thinking all about like drafting a like micro manifesto of rules the way that I do things. Yeah, it's so cool. I really like that.
We lost him. We lost him, folks.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, thank you for listening in. That's a wrap on today's voyage aboard Human in the Loop. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and above all, stay in the loop.
Bye, everybody.